Chapter 16, The Dog Catches the Mouse. Whew, I finally got past the psychic thing. Klein exhaled and turned slowly, enjoying the peace of the night and the cool breeze as she paced near the apartment door. He took out the key and inserted it, twisting it gently, letting the crimson black expand with a creaking sound. Walking on the empty stairs, breathing in the cold air, Klein had a strange feeling of having a few more hours of life than anyone else. So much so that she had a spring in her step. Click! He maintained a similar mentality, opened the door of his own house, but did not step into. He saw a figure sitting quietly in the darkness in front of the desk. Black hair bath red, brown eyes bright, the face is beautiful, like Melissa. Moretti, Klein, where have you been? Melissa asked, her eyebrows unfurling. Before Klein could answer, she added, as if to explain the cause and effect of the matter, the logical relationship, clearly. I just got up to go to the bathroom, and you were not at home. Klein, who has a wealth of experience in deceiving parents, turned his head and replied with a wry smile without haste. I woke up once and I couldn't sleep. So I thought it would be a waste of time to exercise. So I went out and ran a few laps. You see, all sweat. He took off his coat, half turned his body, and pointed to his back. Melissa stood up, took an unconcerned look, considered it for a few seconds, and said, "You know, Klein, you don't have to put too much pressure on yourself. You can definitely pass the interview at Tingen University, and even if you don't, well, I mean if you can find something better." I hadn't even thought about the interview. Klein nodded. You understand? He didn't say he had an offer because he hadn't decided whether to go. Melissa took a deep look at him, turned around, ran into the back room, and pulled out a tortoise-shaped piece of gear. Rusty iron, springs, and clockwork. With a quick twist, Melissa placed the object on her desk. Cock-a-cut, da-da-da. That turtle jump, rhythm, let a person involuntarily will attention to it. When I feel annoyed, watching it move so, it will be a lot more comfortable. I often do this recently. Very effective. Klein, try it. Melissa invited, her eyes shining brightly. Not refusing her sister's kindness, Klein looked closer at the turtle, waited until it stopped, and smiled. Simplicity and regularity can really bring relaxation. Without waiting for Melissa, he pointed to the turtle and casualized, "Meditate yourself. When did you do it? Why didn't I know? I just finished it 2 days ago, using materials I didn't want at school and things I found on the road." Melissa looked the same. The corners of her mouth turned a little. "That's impressive," Klein gushed. As a boy with poor practical ability in mechanical aspects, he had to die to make a 4-wheel drive when he was a child. Melissa's chin lifted, her eyes slightly bent, and her tone was flat. All right. Too much modesty is bad character." Klein chuckled. "Is that a turtle?" There was a sudden hush in the room, and Melissa's voice sounded like a crimson vial. "It's an action figure." An action figure. Klein smiled awkwardly and forced her explanation. "The material problem. It's still too simple." Then he changed the subject. "Why don't you go to the bathroom in the middle of the night when there's a toilet? And aren't you good at sleeping through the night?" Melissa froze for a few seconds before opening her mouth to explain. At that moment, there was a sharp digesting sound in her chest and abdomen. I'm going to sleep again." Bah! She grabbed the turtle, trotted back into the back room, and closed the door. "Last night's dinner was so good. I ate too much. My stomach didn't adapt to it." Klein, shaking her head and laughing, strolled to her desk and sat silently in her chair, quietly thinking about Dunn, with the crimson moon emerging from behind the clouds. Smith's invitation. The disadvantages of being a civilian member of the Night Watch Team Reobvious. Asa crossing person. the initiator of the mysterious gathering Fool. His body has a lot of secrets, long-term wandering in the Dark Goddess Church to deal with extraordinary events under the eyes of the team. The risk is not small. As long as they join Dunn Smith, their goal will certainly be to become extraordinary in order to cover up the benefits gained from the party and become a full member. Freedom will be restricted, just as the civil staff must declare when they leave Tingen. Cannot go where they want to go, do what they want to do, will miss a lot of opportunities. The Night Watchman is a strict organization. Once there is a task, can only wait for the arrangement, accept the order, cannot refuse. Extraordinary people risk losing control. Making a mental list of the disadvantages, Klein instead considers the necessities and the advantages. From the transfer ceremony and other encounters, I will not be 80% of Dunn's lucky. There will inevitably be strange events to fall on the body, full of danger. Only become extraordinary or join the Night Watch to have the ability to contend. If you want to become an extraordinary person, it is impossible to rely on gathering alone. The potion formula is not a problem. But where to find the corresponding materials, how to obtain, how to make, and the common sense of the extraordinary person's daily practice, there are serious obstacles. It is impossible to ask justice and inverted hanging people and everything is exchanged with them, which will not only damage the image of the fool, make the other person suspicious, and don't have enough time to communicate such granular questions, and also have nothing to offer them. In addition, more material exchanges will leave traces of real identity. When the online dispute into offline conflict will be in trouble, and join the Night Watch is bound to have access to the mysterious world of common sense and related channels, accumulate enough corresponding contacts as a fulcrum can leverage the party from the justice and upside down hanging people from the maximum benefits, which in turn will improve the reality, access to more resources, the formation of a virtuous cycle. Of course, it is also possible to find and join the psychological alchemy that Dunn revealed in his mouth, which is suppressed and killed by the major churches. But as a member of them, you will also lose your freedom and even have to be afraid all the time. And the more important problem is that you do not know where to find them. Even if the corresponding information is set out from the mouth of the inverted hanging man, reckless contact can also put lives at risk. Becoming a civilian with a buffer and an exit. Small fate in the wild, fate in the city, big fate in the morning. The identity of the Night Watch may be a better protective color. In the future, when he becomes a senior member of the Arbitral Tribunal, who can imagine that he is a heretic and the mastermind behind a secret organization? The morning sun was shining, the red was fading, and Klein was determined to look at the golden sky. Go to Dunn Smith today and become a civilian on the Night Watch. You didn't sleep? At this time, Melissa got up again, pushed the door out, and was surprised to see her brother stretched out without an image. Think about something. Klein smiled and looked relaxed. Melissa thought for a moment. When you have a problem, I will make a list of the bad and the good. After I have made a list, I will compare it and get a hint on what to do. Good habit, that's what I do. Klein responded with a smile. Melissa's expression relaxed and, without further comment, she grabbed a large yellowed sheet of paper and toiletries and headed to the communal bathroom. After breakfast, his sister left, and Klein was in no hurry to go out, and he was in a good mood to catch up on his sleep, because as far as he knew, almost all pubs were closed in the morning. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he smoothed the folds of the top hat with a small brush and a handkerchief, removed the dirt, and restored it to cleanliness, and then went out in a formal dress, as if for an interview. Beswick Street was a little far away, and Klein, fearing to miss the night watchman's business hour, did not walk there, but waited for the stagecoach at the corner of Iron Cross Street. In the Kingdom of Rune, the stagecoach is divided into two types, trackless and trackless. The former is pulled by two horses. Counting the top of the carriage can seat 20 or so people, only the general route. No specific stops, flexible operation, stop on call unless full. The latter, operated by the rail carriage company, first laid a rail-like device on the main street. The horse walked on the inside. The wheel turned on, easy and labor-saving, so it could pull a larger double-decker car. Take close to 50 guests. The only problem is that the route is fixed. The station is fixed. Many places cannot go. More rigid. 10 minutes later, with the sound of wheels hitting the tracks from far too near, a double-decker cart stopped at the Iron Cross station. To Bessic Street, Klein said to the driver, "You'll have to turn on Rue de Champagne, but when you get there, it's only about 10 minutes walk to Rue Bessic." The driver explained the route. "Then go to Champagne Street." Klein nodded in agreement. "It's more than 4 kilometers, and for pence." A clean-faced young man next to the driver offered his hand. "He's the clerk who collects the money." "All right." Klein took 4 copper pennies out of his pocket and handed them to him. He stepped into the carriage and found that there were not many passengers. Even on the first floor, there were several empty seats. "I've only got 3 pence on me. I'll have to walk back." Klein presses down on her hat and sits firmly in her seat. The men and women on this floor are mostly sitting in formal clothes. They are also wearing overalls and leisurely reading newspapers. But almost no one talks. It is quite quiet. Klein closed her eyes to recover and ignored the passing of passengers. Stop after stop, he finally heard the words Champagne Street. Getting out of the carriage and inquiring along the road, he soon came to Bessic Street and saw the pub with the sign of a brown and yellow hound painted on it. Klein stretched out her right hand, pushed hard, and the heavy door opened slowly. The noise of the noise and the impetuous heat rushed in. Although it was still afternoon, there were already many customers in the tavern. Some of them temporary workers looking for opportunities, waiting to be hired. Others were idle, drunk themselves. Inside the tavern was quite dark, with 2 large iron cages in the center, the bottom third of which went deep into the ground, leaving no space, and people with wooden wine glasses crowded around, sometimes discussing loudly, sometimes cursing and laughing. Klein took a curious look and found that there were 2 dogs inside, one black and white, like the husky of the earth, and one dark, shiny, strong, and fierce. "Do you want to bet?" Doug has won 8 in a row in that time. A small man in a soft brown hat approached and pointed at the black dog. "Bet on it?" Klein was stunned, then realized, dog fighting. At Hoy, the noble students and the sons of the rich would always ask themselves, contemptuously and curiously, whether the rude workers and unemployed hooligans like to engage in boxing and gambling in the pub. Gambling projects in addition to boxing, cards, does not also include cockfighting, dog fighting, and other cruel and bloody projects. The little man sneered. "Sir, we are civilized people and would not do such disgraceful things." At this point, he muttered, "And there was a law against these things last year. So what are you betting on?" Klein was intrigued. "See who's a good hunter." As soon as the little man spoke, there was a sensation. He turned to look at it and waved his hand excitedly. "This game has started. You can't bet. You can wait for the next one." Klein heard the words, stood on tiptoe, raised her head, looked up, and saw 2 strong men each dragging a sack to the iron cage, opened the prison door, and dumped the contents inside. They were gray, disgusting animals. After careful identification, Klein found that they were rats, dozens of rats. Because the cage is deep into the earth, there is no space, and the mice run around, but they cannot escape. At this time, with the cage door closed, the chains of the two dogs were loosened. Woof! The black dog pounced and killed a mouse with one bite. The black and white dog looked confused at first, and then excitedly began to play with the mice. People around them stared intently with their glasses up, or shouted, "Kill it! Fuck it! Dug dog! Goddamn dog catches mice!" Klein came to his senses, his mouth twitching. The gambling here is on which dog catches the most rats. Maybe even bet on how many. No wonder they keep buying live rats down Iron Cross. That's really distinctive. Klein shakes her head, laughs, and walks around the edge, round the crowd, to the front of the bar. New faces. The bartender looked up at him as he wiped his glass. A pint of rye, a pint of Enmat for 2p, a pint of Southwell for 4p. Or would you like a single malt Lonzy? I'm looking for Mr. Wright. Klein spoke directly. The bartender whistled and called to the side. Oldman, someone wants to see you. Oh, who? A muffled voice came up, and a drunk old man stood up behind the bar. He rubbed his eyes and looked at Klein. You wanted to see me, lad? Mr. Wright, I want to hire a mercenary team for a mission. Klein responded as done instructed. Mercenary squad, are you living an adventure story? It's long gone. The bartender interjected with a laugh.